An arrogant man who uses older women for their money ends up falling for a young waitress who's hiding something herself. The story begins with Nikki, a self-centered guy, getting ready to leave a fancy mansion. He's completely focused on how handsome he is. To feed his ego, he remembers a past fling with his mom's best friend. As he walks down the street, he thinks back to when he first arrived in Los Angeles, full of dreams about fame, money, and beautiful women. Luckily for him, most of those dreams came true. That night, he heads to a nightclub and meets Samantha, a successful and attractive lawyer. He tries to charm her. At first, she isn't interested, but little by little, his smooth moves start to work. She finally gives in and brings him to her luxurious home. While they're having a private moment, Nikki holds back on purpose. He knows that being a bit distant will make her want him even more. The next morning, Samantha wakes up and tells Nikki she's going to work. As she gets ready, he flashes her a charming smile while pretending to be asleep. His signature move to keep women hooked. Instead of asking him to leave, Samantha smiles and leaves him a note, saying he can use her credit card to buy breakfast. While she's gone, Nikki relaxes in the mansion and even cooks a fancy meal to impress her. His goal is to gain her trust and stay in her world a little longer. When Samantha comes back, he treats her like a queen and serves her dinner. She asks him about work, and he admits he's not even trying to find a job. Still, she's drawn to him, and they end up having an intimate moment right there on the dining table. This routine continues for a few days. Nikki keeps charming Samantha, all while secretly using her for her wealth. One day, Samantha tells him she's going to New York for a few days. She invites him along, but he says no. They agree he'll stay in the house while she's gone. After dropping her off at the airport, Nikki throws a wild party at her house, inviting lots of people, including his best friend, the womanizing Harry. While they're talking, Nikki sees his drunk ex-girlfriend, Helen, at the party. She's rich and could expose the fact that the house isn't really his. Worried, he tells Harry to take her home. Just then, another woman named Christina asks Nikki for a tour of the house. He agrees, and it leads to a quick and steamy moment between them. After the party, Harry comes back to the house. Since he helped with Helen, Nikki offers him a spare room to sleep in. The next morning, Samantha calls Nikki, upset that he didn't answer her calls the night before. Nikki lies, saying he didn't hear the phone ring, leaving out the part about the loud party. Samantha then tells him she'll be back in a few days and is bringing guests. The next day, Nikki invites his friend Emily over. She knows all about his tricks. He tries to get physical with her, but she tells him she wants something serious. That pushes him away. Later, Emily changes her mind and suggests they get cozy in the bathtub. They move to the bedroom, where she once again asks him to commit. But Nikki says no. He drops Emily off in a parking lot, then heads back to spend time with Christina. But he's caught off guard when Samantha shows up earlier than expected and finds him with Christina. Furious, she confronts him about the party. They get into a big fight about their relationship. In the end, though, they decide to stay together, even though Nikki is still playing games. While Samantha is away again, Nikki visits a coffee shop. That's where he meets Heather, a waitress who immediately turns him down when he asks for her number. Instead, she hands him the bill. Nikki, ever the flirt, writes his number on it and leaves without paying. Heather isn't having it. She tracks him down at the mansion and demands the money. Nikki tries to invite her in, but she refuses. He eventually gives her the cash, and she storms off. But Nikki is now obsessed. He can't stop thinking about the waitress. To win her over, he comes up with a plan. He pretends to be a rich businessman and gets Harry to act as his assistant. When Heather sees Nikki's fancy car parked outside the restaurant, she warns him that he might get a parking ticket. Trying to impress her, Nikki dances with the parking officer, hoping to charm his way out of trouble. Heather finds it amusing, but his plan doesn't work. He still gets a ticket. Back inside the coffee shop, Heather secretly slips her phone number into Nikki's pocket without saying a word. That evening, Nikki calls her, but Heather says she's busy and promises to call him back later. What Nikki doesn't know is that Samantha sees this happen, and jealousy instantly kicks in. The next day, Nikki goes to Harry's apartment to leave some of his stuff and talks to him about Heather not calling back. Harry tells him to just forget about her and move on, but Nikki is still focused on the waitress. Their conversation soon turns playful when Nikki teases Harry about his pet frogs. Annoyed, Harry kicks him out of the apartment. Nikki heads back to Samantha's house to relax and take a swim. Then, out of the blue, Heather calls and invites him to dinner. They meet at a fancy restaurant, but things take a turn when Heather gets a sudden call and rushes out without any explanation. Feeling disrespected, Nikki follows her outside and calls her out for being rude. But Heather doesn't seem to care. She just drives away. The next day, Samantha confronts Nikki and asks if he's seeing someone else. He denies it. She then asks him to drive her to the hospital and pick her up the next day. After dropping her off, Nikki goes to the coffee shop looking for Heather, but he learns she no longer works there. That evening, to his surprise, he finds her swimming in Samantha's pool. He questions her about walking out on their date and wonders if she has a boyfriend. Heather explains that her teenage brother had an emergency because of his multiple sclerosis, and that's why she had to leave so suddenly. The mood softens, and they share a quiet, emotional moment. Nikki shows he cares, and Heather tells him she wants to take things slowly. They hug, leaving Nikki wanting more. The next morning, Nikki takes Heather's car keys to move her Porsche for street cleaning. But then he notices something strange, cigars inside the car. That's when he realizes the car doesn't belong to her. It must be her boyfriend's. Hurt and angry, Nikki throws her keys and clothes at her, yelling for her to leave. Later, Nikki picks up Samantha from the hospital after her surgery. The doctor advises her to avoid any romantic activity for a while. In the days that follow, Samantha sees that Nikki is distant and not answering her calls. She finally decides to end things. Before kicking him out, she warns him that once his looks fade, life will become much harder. Furious, she slaps him across the face and throws his phone into the pool. Now homeless, Nikki turns to Harry for help, but Harry doesn't open the door. He then reaches out to Emily, but she blasts him with harsh words for being a manipulative player. Desperate and with nowhere else to go, Nikki tries to make peace with Harry and agrees to meet him at an exotic dance club. There, Harry's friend Sean helps Nikki get inside. But once inside, Nikki is disturbed by how Harry and Sean treat the dancers. He steps in to stop them, which leads to a fight and Nikki getting kicked out. Outside, Harry reminds Nikki that the women are dancers. Nikki tells him to stop treating women like objects, but Harry fires back, calling Nikki a hypocrite and telling him to leave. Still searching for a place to stay, Nikki tries to sneak into a party but gets rejected at the door. The next morning, he returns to Harry's apartment, hoping for another chance. Instead, Harry throws Nikki's things out and shuts the door, leaving him broke and alone. With no other options, Nikki checks into a cheap motel. He tries calling his mom, but when he admits he has no job, she hangs up on him. Still hungry for the high life, Nikki heads to a hotel the next day and starts flirting with a rich older woman. Just then, Heather shows up, and she's not happy. She calls him out for chasing after another wealthy woman. Nikki admits he's broke and confesses the mansion was never his. To his shock, Heather tells him she scams rich men too. She invites Nikki to her apartment and offers him a place to stay. She mentions that her stoner roommate stays in the bedroom all day and never comes out. Later, Heather reveals she broke up with the Porsche owner and has already found another rich guy to target. The next day, Nikki helps Heather catch the eye of her new target and asks for a cut of whatever she gets. She laughs at the idea and finds it ridiculous. That night, at the apartment, Heather tells Nikki to sleep on the couch, but he insists on sleeping beside her, and they end up getting intimate. Their bond grows deeper, and they start dating and learning more about each other. One day at a restaurant, a woman comes up to Nikki, but he can't remember her name, which offends her. To avoid paying for the meal, Heather gives Nikki a piece of foil to chew, knowing it'll make him react. When he does, she tells the waiter there's something wrong with the food, and they leave the restaurant without paying. Nikki and Heather spend a beautiful day together at the beach. As the sun sets, they share a deep and intimate moment. But soon after, Nikki starts to feel uneasy. He notices Heather is off and out and begins to wonder if she's still chasing rich men. One day, while Nikki is asleep, a DHL delivery arrives. Heather steps onto the porch and looks visibly upset as she opens the package. When Nikki asks her what's wrong, she reveals that she ended her engagement but hadn't told him. This makes Nikki feel hurt and confused. Heather explains that her ex-fiancé is a wealthy man who owns the New York Rangers. She ended the relationship because she's in love with Nikki, but Nikki questions whether her feelings are real. Heather insists that her love is genuine, pointing out that she chose him even though he has no home and no job. Feeling insulted, Nikki walks out and heads to a coffee shop. While there, a woman flirts with him, but he turns her down, realizing he doesn't want his old life anymore. He wants Heather. On the way home, he grabs a newspaper, determined to find a job and build a future with her. But when he gets back, he finds a note from Heather saying she flew to New York to take care of something, and jokingly warns him not to burn down the house. Nikki keeps calling her, but she doesn't answer. The next day at the supermarket, Nikki runs into a drunk friend and offers to drive her home. As she vomits outside the car, Heather finally calls. Nikki is relieved, but she quickly denies being with her ex. Nikki begs her to come back, but Heather says things are more complicated now. Suddenly, she hears a rumor that Nikki is with another woman. Nikki tries to explain it's just a friend, but when Heather finds out the woman drives a Mercedes, she hangs up, thinking he's back to his old tricks. Desperate, Nikki goes to Heather's apartment and talks to her mysterious roommate, Eva, who finally comes out of her room. After hearing what happened, Eva tells Nikki to take action, fly to New York, and propose to Heather. Eva drives him to Harry's place, and the two friends make peace. To help him out, Harry buys Nikki a plane ticket to New York. Once he arrives, Nikki follows the return address from the package Heather had received. He knocks on the door of a fancy home, and Heather opens it, dressed beautifully, but clearly unhappy. Nikki quickly assures her that nothing happened with the woman she heard about. Heather lets him in. As Nikki looks around at the luxurious surroundings, he tries to convince her that this life isn't what she truly wants. He tells her it's all for show and urges her to come back with him. But Heather refuses. She says there's no future with him. Nikki pulls out a ring and proposes. Sadly, Heather says no. She reveals that she's already married to her ex-fiancé. Nikki, still hopeful, suggests she could get a divorce. But Heather says she prefers a stable and comfortable life. Just then, her husband, Will, arrives. Heather introduces Nikki as the delivery guy. Will hands him a tip and then hugs Heather, kissing her right in front of Nikki, breaking his heart. Shattered, Nikki leaves and flies back to Los Angeles. Back home, he starts over. He gets a job as a delivery person. One day, he's delivering groceries to Samantha's house and sees the man who replaced him. Nikki has clearly moved on from his old life. Later, he returns to Harry's apartment, now his home again. As he settles in, he picks up a mouse and feeds it to Harry's pet bullfrog. Did you enjoy the recap? Please like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be updated next time we drop. Thanks for watching.